Hey everyone, welcome back to more Reddit stories from r/IDontWorkHereLady, where people get mistaken for being employees at places they obviously don't work at. So let's get right into it, and please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I don't work here, but I'll pretend I do. Living in Japan, you will see that most of the convenience stores have either Vietnamese staff or brown staff, foreign workers from Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, etc. Service jobs are greatly understaffed there, so you will mostly see one Japanese worker and multiple foreign workers at the minimum wage jobs. I, an Indian too, worked at the store Lawson for 3 years part-time during university. Back then, in my 3rd year of working, I was made leader of the night shift, i.e. running the whole store at night by myself. Night shift is very different from day shift. Besides serving the large number of customers, you have to sort out the accounts, record and check the inventory, liaise with supply people, deep cleaning of equipment, stocking up, cooking, etc. Fast forward to a couple years later, I'm in the Japanese corporate world. Every time I go to a 2nd tier or 3rd tier city for business or tourism, going into a convenience store, I am greeted with "Otsukare-sama desu," which means "thanks for the good work," meant for coworkers, instead of "irashaimase," which is welcome, and "mata okoshi kudasaimase," which is "please come again," meant for customers. Most of the time, I just say "otsukare" back. Sometimes when I am in a foul mood, I patiently correct them, saying I don't work here. As they say in China, never slap a smiling face. Comes the main episode. I get an apartment in Azabujuban, a posh high-income district in Tokyo, famous for being populated by white expats. 2 a.m. at night, I go to the Lawson nearby. 7-Eleven was a bit nearer, but I'm partial to Lawson. It was a big store and full of irritated drunk salarymen and rich brats. The only employee there, who is Japanese, is confused, panicking, and overworked. The supply truck guy is yelling, salarymen are yelling, it's mayhem. The employee eyes me and yells, "Hey, took you so long? Come and help me a bit." I almost lost my temper too, but then smiled and thought, let's do this. Tomorrow's Saturday anyways. I first met up with the annoyed supply guys. They have to bring their trucks to every store in Tokyo, so staying at one store for more than a couple minutes would disrupt the whole schedule. I had the supply checked, dialed in the records, got the hanko from the usual place, stamped, and finished the procedure. Next, called the taxi for the passed out people and escorted them to a safer place. Then took up the register, and in the next 10 minutes, all the customers were served and the store was empty. The employee gave a huge sigh of relief, closed his eyes, and got on his knees. I quietly went to the stock ice cream supply in the cold cases. My dude, after a bit of a rest, called, "Thank you for the efficient help. By the way, you haven't worn your Lawson jacket yet. Could you wear it please, or it would be super unprofessional?" I said, "I don't have a jacket. I don't even work here." He was like, "What? Didn't the manager send you as a replacement?" I said, "Nope. I live in the apartment a block away and came here to shop." I told him I used to work in a Lawson many years ago, so I was familiar with the procedures. He was very embarrassed, and said sorry and thank you in around 20 different phrases of polite Japanese. I was like, chill man, I'm gonna come here often, so yoroshiku ne. Felt good overall as the aftermath, and taught me again as well that as a senior guy in a corporate headquarter, I must always be mindful of the mental and physical health of the people on the front lines. Must not leave them with any inadequacies, as they're the ones who represent the big company to the world and do the actual work. This next story is called Leave It to Me. This isn't my story, but someone who works with me. We work for a retail drugstore chain. I'm going to call my colleague Jane. Our store is 24 hours. I work the morning shift and Jane works the overnight shift. We're both shift supervisors. In recent months, shoplifting has become a very bad problem. Monday through Friday, between 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. overnight, has a frequent customer come in. Let's call her Amanda. Amanda works as a security guard and is in her uniform. She comes into the store before going to work to buy some soda, snacks, and cigarettes. She's quite friendly, and the staff knows her by name. This particular morning, Jane has her eye on a suspected shoplifter. There's a woman somewhere in her mid-20s with a large bag, and she's stuffing it with hair products, makeup, and other items. Amanda tries to say hi to Jane, but Jane signals that she has her eye on someone. Amanda mouths, "Leave it to me." Amanda follows the woman for a few feet, then the following conversation happens. "Finding everything okay?" asked Amanda. "Yes, everything is great," said the shoplifter. Peering into the woman's bag, Amanda asks, "Are you shoplifting?" In a frightened voice, the shoplifter says, "Yes." I advise you to stop and return all the stuff in your bag before I call the police," said Amanda. Amanda starts to take out her cell phone. The shoplifter dumps everything in her bag in the middle of the aisle and quickly runs out the door. As the shoplifter is dumping her stuff, Amanda tells her, "I'd better not see you in the store again or I will call the police and report this incident." Amanda informs Jane about the pile of merchandise and proceeds to do her shopping. At the cash register, Jane and the cashier are thanking Amanda profusely for her stopping the shoplifter. Amanda says she likes her store and doesn't want people like the shoplifter ruining it for her. All I will say is, Amanda, you rock. Yeah, in this case, Amanda didn't even need to actually work there at all. Just the fact that she was in her security guard uniform is good enough, I guess. I'm sure no shoplifter would dare question her after she just called them out like that. Karen mistakes teenager for bartender. This is not my first, nor do I think it will be my last. As I said in my last one, my dad manages several bars and restaurants in our area. I look older than I really am to some people, possibly because I'm tall for my age, I don't know. This lady comes in, late 40s, early 50s. She picks a table that hasn't been cleared yet, although there are several other open seats. Contrary to my last story, I wasn't wearing a shirt. I'm guessing OP means they're wearing a shirt, but not a work shirt. Anyway. However, I did have my dad's hat. He had to go grab something from the office, so he plopped his hat on my head and told me he would be right back. I was playing on my phone waiting for my dad when this lady coughs loudly at me. I look up and she points at the table. I was slightly confused and she's drumming her fingers on the table impatiently. So I ask her, "Is there something someone can do for you?" "Yes," she said huffily. "They can clean off this table." I look around and see everyone is at their tables at the moment. So I tell her there are several other tables open. She rolls her eyes and said, "Well, I want to sit in this one." My parents taught me to be polite and how to deal with Karens. So I tell her, "Ma'am, every server is busy with one of their tables right now. If you could sit at a table that's cleared, I'm sure someone will get to you in a moment." "You aren't busy." She snaps at me. I asked her, "What makes you think I work here?" She rolls her eyes. "That hat." She says it like it's the most common knowledge to exist. She tells me to go make her a drink. I tell her I can't. She glared at me and said, "That is ridiculous." And she demands I go make her a drink. I tell her again, I can't. I tell her I'm underage and don't work here. She asks again that I clear the table and get her a drink. I don't have a problem giving someone a hand, especially the people that work in the restaurant with my parents. I knew most of them well, so I tell her I would be glad to help one of the servers clear the table so she could sit. But I tell her again I can't get her a drink. She sighs, clearly very aggravated. I grabbed the plates, took them back, and wiped off the table. One of the dishwashers, who I have hung out with a couple times, asked me who my friend was. He was joking, and I explained she thought I worked here. He laughed and told me to make her a drink and see what happens. I raised an eyebrow at him, but he shrugged and told me it would be funny. I shrugged, went behind the bar, and made the only thing I knew how to, a Shirley Temple. I make the Shirley Temple and start to bring it to the lady. She sat down and is on her phone and is very irritated. I give her the Shirley Temple, she takes one sip and asks me what it is. I tell her it's a Shirley Temple. She asks me why in the world I brought that to her. I told her you asked for a drink from a minor that doesn't work here. I paused and asked her what did she expect. One of the waitresses who actually worked there and could go behind the bar and make drinks came over. She looked confused at me and I shrugged. The Karen proceeded to ask if she was the manager, and she told her she was. The Karen explained my unacceptable, rude, disrespectful, and frankly shameful behavior. The waitress backed me up and said I don't work here, and she wouldn't have asked me to bring her a drink. The waitress backed me up and said I explained to her multiple times I couldn't do that. The Karen ended up having to pay for the Shirley Temple because she took a drink of it. The waitress looked at me and asked why I gave her a Shirley Temple after finishing laughing. I told her it was the dishwasher's idea. "Snitch," the dishwasher responded, as we were standing near the window. My dad finally came out of the office and asked why we were laughing. I gave him his hat back and told him to stop giving me his stuff. We explained the whole thing to him and he found it hilarious. My mom, on the other hand, scolded me a little, but she was laughing too. What did she expect? She demanded a drink from a minor and didn't even specify what she wanted. She just said, "Get me a drink." So of course the underage person will give you a non-alcoholic drink. Just a little dose of malicious compliance thrown in there. I'm not a taxi driver, I'm delivering papers. This is in the UK during the 90s. It's an average-sized town. For decades, you would find only 2 or 3 corner shops that provide paper delivery services. This means that people from all corners of the town would come to those few shops to have their papers delivered. This in turn results in paper boys and girls delivering to homes far apart from each other. The stores would try to minimize travel by putting those homes as close to each other in a single route, but it wasn't easy. Then there was another problem: the papers themselves. We have papers like the Daily Mail and Telegraph. When the week starts, these papers are thin and manageable. But by the time the weekend arrives, they're so thick that you need to split them into 6 parts to fit them through mailboxes piecemeal. Because of the travel distances and the thick papers, half the paper routes were done by car. The shops would pay well for these inconveniences, not to mention that quite a few of the homes leave tips for those delivering their papers, especially Christmas tips. So on to what happened. Back in the 90s, before I was old enough to drive, one of my parents would drive me around on my paper routes. Well, I actually biked it for the first half of the week, with only 2 trips back to the shop for more papers. My parents would drive me around on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because there was no way of fitting more than 12 deliveries into a single paper bag. Literally, I kid you not, the papers filled the back seats of the car, almost floor to ceiling in all 3 seats, and maybe even a pile in the boot, trunk. Well, this was a weekend morning, and my dad had pulled up onto a street where I had to deliver to half a dozen houses. So I'd grab a paper or 2 and take them to the relevant homes, before returning to the car for more. I was just reaching into the back seats and grabbed a couple of papers to deliver when someone walked up to me. "Excuse me, can you take me into town?" The guy slurred. He was clearly drunk. Maybe he had an all-night bender because I was delivering papers at like 6 a.m. "No can do, we're not a taxi, we're delivering papers," I replied as I closed the door. "Can you just take me into town?" he asked. "Sorry, we can't," I replied. "Hey, what's with all of the papers, man? I can't climb in with these here," I heard him say as I opened the gate to the first house. I turned and saw that he had opened the back door that I had just closed. "Go away," my dad yells at him. "I told you, we're not a taxi, we're delivering papers," I yelled at him and he closed the door. I turned around and posted the paper. By the time I got back to the gate, the guy was walking down the street. Not in a straight line, but still walking. After I'd delivered the rest of the papers for the street, we drove off. We passed the guy a street away, still walking in a wavy line. Never saw him again. This guy obviously didn't listen to a word they said. I'd be willing to bet that even after he walked away, he probably still had no idea what was going on, and never even realized that the car he got into wasn't even a taxi. Sorry man, we don't deliver drunk people, just papers. That's going to be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Be sure to leave a like and a comment, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Your support is very much appreciated. So I'm out of here, guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time.